13 books. Good job. Just
Cancel that.
Hey, we used to
Oh.
check though.
There's a bunch of there's miracles in it.
Okay, miracles.
All the books have chapters.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Story of
Or
the world.
chapter. No, that's not.
Oh, you're not wrong.
True, there's one chapter.
There's many stories.
Jude has one chapter.
It talks about the prophecy.
Prophecies, yeah, we've got that.
Pharaoh.
Different genre.
Oh, Moses wrote the first 5.
We'll put that under written by several people.
Oh, right.
It talks about what Jesus did. Yeah, but God works in the Bible.
No, but like it talks about his miracles and some in bigger detail.
I didn't read that. Good thing I caught that.
Yeah, I'm glad you did too.
God's word
To
to
the-
we the people. To the Bible.
That's a word I'm talking
Yeah.
about. The Bible.
Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
Bible stuff.
What else do we know?
Yes.
Hey, guys.
I said that you can take credit for
Okay.
it. Maddie, this is like we didn't heard that wrong.
No, it's Maddie. It has a lot of different stories.
It has songs in it.
If it's already on the board, I don't want you to repeat that or anything similar to it, alright?
Songs on the board.
It has a lot of different stories.
You just
We
covered
just said
that.
that. And what kind of
Brand new.
Okay, what else?
Question. In a way, does it kind of like predict the future? I've heard
There are parts that do, those would be in the prophets.
Okay, because I'm
Like
that article about that.
Yeah.
Pencil?
Armageddon.
Well,
Okay.
even just besides like Armageddon or like generic prophecies or whatever that are made, there are actual like specific prophecies that are made as well. Like in the book of Isaiah, Isaiah actually predicts Cyrus before Cyrus is ever born. Yeah. Listen. All right. In Isaiah, Cyrus actually predicts that Cyrus will release the Jews from Persia and will allow them to go back, not only just to go back, but to actually rebuild the temple and the city and everything else. And he does that, like, I don't know, 80 years or more before Cyrus is ever born. And so when Cyrus goes to read one of the scrolls that's within his treasury or whatever, he sees that his name has already been written down, and he's like, well, who am I to deny this? And so he says, okay, Jews, going home, I will pay for the temple to be built and everything else. And so the prophecy is fulfilled from Isaiah. Well, he was divinely smart, inspired.
He was what?
Divinely inspired.
Divine.
Means God.
Say what?
It was just funny, sorry.
Inspired.
But the text itself is inspired.
Yeah.
Okay?
Inspired
Read.
and inspiring.
And
I see what you did there. Alright. Alright. What else? Is there anything else that we know about the Bible?
I know a lot more.
You don't want
I
statistics,
love the
just
Bible.
I want it
You know what, Josiah, you do you. Yeah, you do you.
Alright.
Okay.
Well, this is good stuff to be able to. This is good stuff about the text. All right. So we've got that it's God's word to the world. We've got that there are several different books and it's broken down between the Old Testament and New Testament. That there are a lot of different genres. Okay, and this in and of itself is important because each genre is written in a different way and for that time period. And so the way that they're written isn't necessarily something that reflects the way that we would write today. Okay? For example, poetry. when you guys read poetry today, do our poets today write it from a literal standpoint?
Depends on the person.
Okay. I think there are some poems where they might actually try and write from a more literal perspective or whatever, but generally speaking, most poetry is written from an artistic standpoint. Okay? Poetry is the same way here. Okay? So there are a lot of different times in the Psalms where they refer to different things in a poetic manner, not necessarily a like purely scientific manner. Okay? Same with the law, the Torah. Okay? When they wrote the creation account, they weren't concerned about the scientific accuracy of the creation account. All right? They were trying to share their understanding of how God created heaven and earth, not all these other different gods. So, there's that. You'll also notice that when you go through the genealogies and such, in the law and also in the kingdom literature, when you're talking about the reign of the kings and so forth, you'll notice that those genealogies don't always match up. Okay? It's because they weren't concerned about precise accuracy in that stuff. And their audience understood that. Okay? So, lots of different genres and a lot of different styles of writing that are represented throughout the text. Another good point that we talked about was that it was written by several people. That's important to understand. Not just authors, but also several different editors. Okay? So one thing to remember is that specifically in the Old Testament, a lot of this history was transmitted orally. Okay? So people would share the story by word of mouth, but they did it in such a way that it was a good repetition. And in doing so, they kept the story. And it wasn't until somebody decided that they wanted to start writing down these stories that they started becoming part of the book. And then as more stories were added, they would sit there and take those different stories and compile them to form one text. So you not only have different authors, but you have different editors. We talked about different translations. What are some translations that you can think of off the top of your head? NIV.
NLT.
NLT, yes.
King James.
ESV.
Yes.
King
James.
King
New
James.
King James. New King James.
New King James. Okay.
Hold on.
No Google.
I'm not Googling it, I'm going to Bible Gateway.
Yeah,
Geneva.
I'm trying to
Geneva?
remember.
I haven't
The
heard of that one.
message.
That's
That
right.
was
The
good.
massage.
Geneva. Message.
Have you ever heard of that one?
Face.
What?
Go hear it.
Yes.
That is like the only one I like.
Okay. So,
Oh, the complete Jewish Bible.
yes. Okay. This is good though. I mean, like we said, that there's a lot of different translations out there. And do you guys remember what we said about the spectrum, the range of translations? If we were to put all the translations on a line, we said that there was thought for thought, and word for word. Okay? And so each of these is going to fall somewhere in this spectrum, somewhere on this line, and they're all working off of different bases. Well, some of them are working off different bases. Like the New King James operated off the Latin translation that the Catholic Church had had for centuries. But most of these others actually work off of the actual text, the actual Hebrew or the Greek that's available. Okay?
Question.
Yeah.
Was the Is it the King James version? Isn't it like just like a better understanding of most of it?
Huh?
Is it like just a it's written differently for a better understanding.
No, that's NLT. Doesn't elaborate more.
Wait,
Is
The
the King James version like totally different than all the other Bibles?
I mean, there are some areas that are still fairly accurate, but the problem is that there's like different parts in the King James where it's just like some of it doesn't make sense in our culture, but it made sense in theirs, and it was right in theirs. Like for example, in the King James version, there's one part that talks about a unicorn. Okay, here's the trick. Here's the trick. A unicorn referred to a rhinoceros because it had one horn. That they didn't see that even though there are rhinoceroses that have multiple horns, they mainly knew of rhinos that only had the one horn. So they called it a unicorn.
Thank you.
Or
One of my kids
there's,
are saying something
or
about
there's
it.
Yeah.
horns and
There's what? Give me 1 second, okay? So there are parts of the King James where it's just a different translation. Like for example, there's a part in the King James that talks about there's a house with many rooms, okay? Or well, they say a mansion, okay? And that's where we get the song "I've Got a Mansion Up on the Hilltop," okay? That's actually a bad translation. Okay? Well, at least for us, it's a bad translation because in their day and age, when the King James was written, mansion meant a house with many apartments. So a place where many people live. Okay? So to translate that to our song today, it'd be like, I've got an apartment with many other people, right? Okay? So that's why in the newer translations they say, I prepared a house with many rooms, okay? So there's some stuff like that, but there are some things where it's just like completely off base, okay? And we have to be a little bit careful with the King James as well because there are also times where King James, the guy that authorized the text to be written, actually put some of his own agenda into the text. So we do have to be kind of careful with the King James. So, yes?
Doesn't it like elaborate on like with bigger words and different like big words that some people have to like
they're not big.
Yeah, like it just uses the language that they used in the day. So instead of like do, it's duh or stuff like that. So
Was it NLT like words that we use today?
Huh?
Is it NLT like words that we use today?
yeah, there's a lot of different translations that do like the NLT. Like there's the New Living Translation, there's the Today's New International Version.
Today's
No, I don't actually have that one up here yet. There's another translation that's called the Story, where it actually puts the text, like it actually takes all of the chapter headings and verse numbers out of the text completely because those aren't actually in the original text. And so it writes it in such a way, combines the text in such a way that it actually tells a story the way that it's supposed to. There are some prints of the Bible where they might use the new NIV or New Living, but they put it in chronological order. Okay? Yeah. So, for example, what's the order of the Gospels? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, right? What comes after John?
Acts.
Acts. Who wrote Acts?
John. Mark. Luke.
Luke wrote Acts. Okay? So in some of them, they'll actually put Luke and Acts together, and they'll actually change the order so that it's Matthew, Mark, John, Luke, Acts.
That's weird.
It's weird to us because that's what we're accustomed to, the Gospels and then Acts. Okay? But it was actually written that way. Okay? There's other books where, like, especially in the Kingdom literature, okay? You've got 1st and 2nd Kings, and you've got 1st and 2nd Chronicles. What's 1st and 2nd Kings about? The Kings. Yeah. What's 1st and 2nd Chronicles about? The Kings. Okay. Pretty much. Okay, but with a slight difference. Okay. So with 1st and 2nd Kings, you mainly follow the story of Israel.
Or in Chronicles is the story of
Judah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, there's overlap.
So basically like First Kings, First Chronicles, Second Kings, Second Chronicles.
Kind of. What they would do is they'd actually just take different details from the two or from the four books and mix them together to make one whole book. Okay. Now the other thing to keep in mind is that in the original writings, First and Second Kings was one book. Okay, they didn't have like when they were doing their Old Testament, or readings from the scriptures in Jesus' day. They didn't have like, okay, well this is first the scroll of First Kings, and this is the scroll of Second Kings. It was just one set manual. Same thing with First and Second Chronicles, First and Second Samuel. Okay, so there's a lot of different things to be aware of when you're reading the text. All right, because that influences the way that we read it. Okay. We talked about how there's the Old and New, and they're called Old Testament and New Testament, but you could just as easily call it Old Covenant and New Covenant because these are the different laws that are being, or agreements that are being talked about in these two texts. Okay, and then Brianna brought up that they're full of different commands, right? So. We see a lot of the commands in the Old Testament, and then we see commands in the New Testament as well. Well, what's the trick? Good catch. Okay, so we've got Old Testament commands and New Testament commands. Are they different?
Yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't know.
No,
The way you're looking at
they're
it,
enforced in a
you
different way.
don't think about it.
Okay.
Like don't have no say, do it this way. Like, oh, it's
Okay. Pretty much, because what you basically have in the Old Testament is you've got God stating a certain set of rules, and then when Jesus comes, he specifically says, I did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. Yeah. Okay. And so when he's saying I came to fulfill it, he's specifically saying these are still in place for the most part. There are obviously certain rules that get either passed away or that take on a new form, but generally speaking, what we see in the New Testament is still coming from the Old Testament and still is in place. Okay? For example, in the Old Testament, God consistently goes to the people and says, take care of the poor, watch out for the needy, watch out for the hungry, and all these other different people that might be neglected. What does Jesus tell us? Same thing. Okay? The reason that this is the same is because it's inspired. It's inspired, and it's inspired by the same person. Okay? It's all still coming from God. Does God change? No. His nature does not change. He might change his mind. We see that from time to time in the text. But his nature itself does not change. Okay? And so because God doesn't change, the commands still exist. All right? We also have the text is inspired. And that's an important thing to note. Because there's a lot of controversy around that one right there. Okay? So, I guess I shouldn't necessarily say controversy, but when you see that the scripture is inspired, what do you think? Like the phrase that the scripture is inspired.
makes me think of like God telling something.
God directly telling, right? Okay. All right. There are a lot of people that would agree with that. I'm personally pretty much on this same understanding. I do think that there are some times when God spoke to people and they wrote some of their stuff down, and then it became inspired. Okay, because if you look at the way Paul writes, it doesn't appear that Paul thinks that his writing is necessarily inspired, that it's going to become what we call canon. Okay, but God was obviously using that and accepted it as his telling to the people. Okay? So, I still kind of feel like that's still God directly telling, and that it's still that authoritative in that sense. There are some people that try and argue it's not. I don't know. I don't really agree with that, but it's important to know at least that there are people that would argue that it's not necessarily God directly telling, but I'm going to say it is. Okay? And that's what I would encourage you guys is to understand that it is God telling his people, not just the writers, not just the original audience, but you and I as well. Okay? So, let's see, what time we got? Ooh, it was almost 8 o'clock. Didn't even hear the first bell. And my granddad's not here. Okay. So yeah, we've got a lot of good stuff, so I'll get this out to you guys, so that you can, go ahead and start working on the scriptures for this. Now some of this stuff, you're probably not necessarily going to need to find scripture for, okay? Like for example, I don't expect you to find something in the Bible that says, there are 66 books in this Bible, right? That would be kind of crazy.
Starting pages.
Where'd you find,
Whatever.
where'd you find that?
Alright, but there are certain things that you can find. For example, God's word to the world. There should be examples of editors and such in the text. If you can find that, good. But at least for authors, just come up with different authors that were in the text. And then we'll talk more about Old Covenant, New Covenant, etc., etc. We shouldn't have a whole lot to cover with this one, and so we should be able to move on pretty quickly into our next section. So, all right. So calendar. Oops. Good. There we go.
Kobe.
Good. Okay. Calendar. Sunday. We've got the youth ministry meeting after morning worship. So I want to see you guys here because I don't want just parental feedback. I want your feedback as well. Okay. That'll be right after morning worship, and then we'll go out to the student center and we'll grill out for lunch. Guys bring drinks, girls bring sides.
Who's bringing the grill?
I'm gonna see if I can't get Randy to. Oh, are you offering?
We have a smoker.
If you want to bring it, do you think
It takes a while though, just
What?
pressing the grill.
Do you want to help cook?
Oh, yeah.
Sweet. Is it charcoal?
No.
Okay. Help? Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely need you to help cook stuff because I've never actually cooked on pellets before. So.
It's a lot easier.
Is it?
You just basically put a probe in there and turn it on, and it starts, and it catches on fire. And it's
Yeah, I've cooked the charcoal once. I never really like doing it. I usually cook with gas. So, anyways, all right. 16th, the third Sunday of the month. Third Sunday of the month, we've got guy girl time. We're gonna start off here in the building for dinner, and then we'll break off from there. Guys, I did find out that we are gonna be able to go to the cable news and work on that stuff. Girls, if you all have something that you'd like to do, reach out to Abby and let her know. So, otherwise, yeah.
chopping.
All right. Don't forget, we've got the garage sale coming up this month too. Okay. So we've got the prep on that Friday from 5 to 8. Then the sale itself, that's Saturday.
Oh wait.
No.
Never mind.
Holly.
Okay,
Actually, no, wait, okay, so I'm not gonna do it the first, or maybe the 22nd.
Okay.
Gotta make it- you gotta make it
Softball. No, not softball.
Bowling.
all right.
You're not supposed to be.
Listen.
Yeah, you should go bowl. Stop rolling.
It's like.
You guys are just like chatterboxes tonight. I don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
and it's a nice.
I haven't seen
Okay, listen. All right, if you have items you want to sell in the garage sale, bring it. If you have baked goods you would like to put in the garage sale, bring it. We'll get it sold. That's okay. If you can't be there for one or the other, it's okay. If you can't be there for both, it's okay. All right. All we're gonna do is I would like as many of you to come out and help as you can. But what we'll do is we're going to take the total amount from this, and anybody that wants to go to camp, we're just gonna discount your rate by that much. Okay, by the division of how many people are going and et cetera, et cetera. So, oh, fourth Sunday, we've got the meal fellowship, so there's no activity then, and then we've actually got fifth Sunday this month as well. And I don't know yet where that's gonna be. I've heard it's supposed to be at 21st, but I don't know. No, it's in Doro.
What weekend is after the 28th?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be.
Okay.
Wait, what? We're done after.
Okay.
What?
All right. One last thing I wanted to say for you guys real quick is this. I know I throw this slide up there every week after class, but I want to specifically say, especially after Sunday night's Devo, we asked the question of how many of you guys have talked to other people about your faith and all that, and I'm used to this being something that's a lot more challenging for people. So when I saw most of you guys raise your hand and talk about it and like it was no big deal, I was really proud of you guys. And I am always proud of you guys because you guys always do a stellar job coming in here ready for class, knowing this stuff. It at least seems to me like you're taking it in. So really proud of you guys. So when I put this up here, it's more of a reminder for me to tell you guys that we love you because I'm just so used to how proud I am of you all and how much we really do care for you that I don't always say it. So
I love you too.
thank you. So that being said, potato 5. Got my class.
Mashed potatoes.